Cindy, I just got a few minutes. I've got a master naturalist class online to watch. What do you know?
Linda Bueller, you're not on mute. We can hear your phone call, honey.
Hello. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'm Linda. I've been the president this past year, and we held elections every year. Our board is selected by election, and tonight's the night. We have a slate of candidates that was shared with the newsletter. It was shared with a special email specifically to members because only members vote for board candidates, and it was posted on our website for quite some time. So tonight is the night. Anyone can nominate additional people to any position. If you want to run for a position or you want to nominate someone, then put it in the chat, or I guess you can probably unmute and speak up, and we will add them to the candidacy, and then we'll vote. So it will be an online poll, which you'll see in just a minute. Andrew?
I'll put the poll after we give about a minute for nominations. I'll share the.
Okay. All right, then I'll read down the candidates. So for president, there's me. I'm willing to do this again for another year. Vice president is Reba Wiles. She just joined us and she's quite the go-getter. She's been attending our last several meetings. The vice president doubles as the program chair, which means she'll be finding the speakers. Lan Shen was vice president last year. She will be secretary this year, or she's running for secretary this year. And Andrew is staying on as our treasurer, hopefully. And then we have 5 open positions known as the directors at large. Katie MD. Katie, I'm sure you all know, she's been doing the plan of the month for years and doing all kinds of consulting and advising. Linda Knowles, been the past president and president of the state chapter. Mark Morgenstern, who is with Morningstar Prairie Plants and has been instrumental in all of our native plant sales. Mark Crowdy and Zachary Epstein. They've both been attending several meetings and participating in getting things done. Is anyone interested in nominating themselves or another person for any position?
You can post in the chat or unmute yourself. Probably easiest to post in the chat. Okay, maybe we should do each position at a time. So maybe about 20 seconds here if anyone has nominations for president. And you can nominate yourself again. Going once, going twice. Okay, nominations for vice president. Anyone not want to nominate themselves or someone else? And this is per the bylaws, everyone. Sorry for the formality, but we are to give time for each position for nominations on the floor. So again, taking nominations for vice president. Okay, going once, going twice. Okay, any nominations for secretary? Again, the current slate, Lan Shen is the candidate on our current slate. Nominations for secretary going once, going twice. Okay, nominations for treasurer in addition to me. Any takers? I'm kidding. I mean, you can nominate yourself if you want to. Going once for treasurer, going twice. Okay, directors at large. Again, you can type in the chat if you prefer. Nominations for directors at large going once, going twice. Okay, nominations are closed. We have our slate of candidates. So members, please vote on the poll that is about to show up here now. Give me just a moment. Okay, you should see a poll now. Go ahead and, if you're a member, go ahead and complete your poll. If you are not a member, please leave it blank.
I don't see one. I know I'm not to be voting, but I don't see one.
I think it's because you're a co-host, Linda.
Oh, okay. I see a black box.
Okay, we'll just give it about one more minute. Okay, I'll end the poll in about 10 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. I think you should be able to see the results now. And all of the nominated candidates have been elected to the positions for which they were nominated. Thank you so much, everyone. We look forward to serving you in 2022.
I have a couple announcements. I believe everyone's seeing my screen now. I just wanted to let you know about a great event. Pines were founded 1 year ago on January 29th. They're celebrating their anniversary at the Spring Creek Nature Center. The Spring Creek Greenway Trail, which is one of the largest continuous park in the country, I believe, goes all the way across from Tomball to Kingwood. And this is in the spring area with a day full of events and plant walks for children. So you might want to check that out. Visit their website. You find their website like you find all of our websites, nipsot.org. And then there's a page with all the chapters, but it's WP/Pines and Prairies. Also, the native landscaping certification classes are starting soon. The registration is going to start February 1st. I'm working on getting them on the website right now. In the Houston area, there will be level 1, which is the intro and prerequisite for the whole certification program. And we're also having the native landscapes for birds, which is a companion class. Those two are 100% online, but there will also be another one if you wanted to get out somewhere, another one offered by the Pines and Prairies chapter that will have an online class, but then an in-person plant walk. And then another thing I want to let you know is we've been asked to consult about native landscaping in esplanades in the A-Leaf area. The city is on board, the Parks Department is on board, city council people are very interested in this. So hopefully we'll get it spread throughout the city. But there is already a meeting set up on February 2nd. So if anyone wants to participate in that, put your name in the chat and I'll get you the link to the meeting. So, okay, that's it. I guess next would be the Plant of the Month and KDMD.
Okay. Can you hear me? Am I good?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Great. Okay. Well, it's been a long time since I've done a plant of the month, so it's nice to be doing it again. We had a little glitch this month, so I'm going to be doing a repeat of a plant that was done a few years ago, and it's a plant that blooms early, so it seemed appropriate. And that plant is small flower fumewort. I assume most of you saw some of the slideshow, and that's Corydalus micrantha. And Corydalus is Greek for lark. And so whoever named the genus chose the name due to the fact that the flower has floral spurs and larks have spurs on their legs, which to me seems a little obscure, but and a little funny. But then I started thinking about it and I thought, well, this must ring true for a few people, because we also have the common name of a larkspur. So, the spur thing is that spurs and birds are in their head. This plant is not currently available for purchase. It isn't, so it's one of those little plants that is just a pretty little plant that sometimes you get the surprise and pleasure of seeing it. And that is usually going to happen when you're out in the wild. Occasionally it'll show up in somebody's yard, having been, who knows how it got there. So you might see it, but generally you're going to be out on a walk somewhere. Corylus is an annual and it blooms usually in late February or March. The Wildflower Center says that it wants all sun, but I recently discovered a big patch and it's in part sun. So I'll visit it again. And if it doesn't do well, then I can make that comment, but I have a feeling it will also do well in part sun. The plant has a pretty large rosette, which is about 8 inches across, and that's what I'm seeing now. And the leaves are real ferny and kind of a blue-green. And as the stem starts to grow, the leaves always stay below the flower raceme. So you get these yellow flowers that are just kind of floating around, looking like they're floating around. So it's a nice, airy little plant. Let's see. Oh, there's more detailed information, as you saw in the PowerPoint. So if you're interested, please go to the website and find it under the Plant of the Month section. And I'd like to mention a couple of plants of the month that we did previously that are early bloomers. And I was told that creeping spot flower is blooming now, starting to bloom, and violets always start blooming in January. So keep your eyes open for those because they're so pretty. And then I've noticed that the winter vetch, which is that real thin little pea vine that starts twining around things about now. It's not blooming yet, but you'll probably start seeing it in your yard because almost everybody has it. And then, and those have been plants of the month. So you can look up more information in that same section. And then lastly, if you go through and you look at the PowerPoint, please go down to the end, because on this particular one, for some strange reason, I added, well, it was a really interesting, colorful larva of a beetle. And then I have a picture of the beetle, and this is a beetle that uses Baccharis as its host plant. And so that was just a added little fun thing. And since Baccharis is in an awful lot of places around here and possibly in your yard, you might see that little beetle or the neat little larva. So that's it. Stay warm.
Okay. So Lan has a couple announcements. Hers are good ones. Lan.
There. I just unmuted myself. Sorry. I have one announcement, and then I'll go on and introduce Mark, who's our speaker for today. My announcement is usually in January at the Houston chapter of the Native Prairies Association of Texas meeting, this held in conjunction with the Katy Prairie Conservancy, we have a sea cleaning and packing pizza party. Last year we didn't have it because of COVID. This year we're postponing it until the fourth Wednesday in February. That's February 23rd. Also because of the community spread of Omicron. So we're hoping that we can have that, that the COVID will, the spread will die down by then. And we're planning to have it February 23rd, 6:30 to 8:30 at the American Red Cross building, which is near on the Southwest Freeway near Kirby. It is a Katy Prairie Conservancy Houston chapter of the Native Prairies Association of Texas joint sea cleaning party. We're probably not going to have pizza also due to COVID, but we might have individually wrapped food. And you'll learn, no experience necessary, just sign up and you'll learn how to clean a lot of the seeds that we've been collecting this past fall. Okay. Oh yeah. It's not on the HMPAT website yet. The HMPAT website is houstonprairie.org, but it should be on there soon. And also look at the calendar of the Katy Prairie Conservancy website. You can sign up there also. And now I wanted to introduce Mark Morgenstern, who's our speaker tonight on he's speaking on propagation, and he is a very appropriate person to be speaking on that because Mark Morgenstern is the only owner of Morningstar Prairie Plants. He propagates our native prairie plants from seed and sells them at the Wildscape Workshop and also at plant sales at Urban Harvest markets and other local markets. Mark is a member of NIPSOT and also of HMPAT. He's also a Texas Master Naturalist of the Coastal Prairie chapter. And Mark, usually in March, Mark does a propagation workshop at Brazos Bend State Park. I don't know if he's doing one this year or not, but in the past he's done that. And it usually ends with a trip to his nursery and also another, and followed by a trip to Nash Prairie all in one day. And it's a wonderful, wonderful workshop. If he does it, you need to look for it. Okay, so our speaker tonight is Mark Morgenstern. Mark. Mark, you need to unmute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm gonna need share my screen.
Give me a second. I gotta give
Yeah.
you permission here.
Okay.
Can you do it now?
Nope, it says host disabled.
Okay, try now.
Okay, how's that? Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So, yeah, my name's Mark Morgenstern. I started Morningstar Prairie Plants in 2014. This is a little while after Jaime Gonzalez offered me $4 for every lovegrass I could come up with when he saw my purple lovegrass plants. And that got the wheels turning. And KDMD showed me how to set up a DBA. And went from there. Started off slow, but it's picked up. But anyways, let's talk about propagating native plants. This is our coastal prairie. You can see it includes almost all of Houston. That Louisiana, it's 9 million acres, 6 million in Texas, 3 million in Louisiana. And Louisiana was completely extirpated. So they are doing restorations over there, collecting off railroad right-of-ways and places like that to get prairies going again. So there's work there. But anyways, my property I bought in 2001 is 7 acres out here, and it had lots of native plants already, like Missouri ironweed, green milkweed. There's thousands of viridis here, aquatic milkweed, and a lot of the native plants we found right on this property. And then when I first joined Native Plant Society and Native Prairie Association around years ago, I didn't know what ironweed was. I had no luck looking things up in books. So I basically used to bring a vase to the meeting. I cut the ironweed and brought it in a vase to the meeting, and people said, "Nice ironweed," and I wrote it down. Then I had to look up what variety it was, because there's a New York ironweed grows on Long Island. So, but our local one's Missouri, and you can't really pay attention to the first word of a name of a plant, because a lot of things say Mexican and they're Texas natives, or Missouri, Texas native. So let's go on to the next slide. So we start off with seeds. We collect them roadside, prairies, railroad right-of-ways. Lanshan had a lot of nice collections. I made most of them. And some places where we could actually rescue plants. And so seeds have to be collected in paper, because you don't want them mildewing. They still hold a little moisture. You don't want them mildewing. And so we always collect in paper bags. And what's important, and I wasn't really good at this, and I still got some mystery seeds in my seed room. And basically, I write down the date, the location, and the species on the bag. And that's really important, because you have to know where they come from. And Andrew, in a few slides down, I'm going to have some embedded videos, and I think there's something you need to do on your end to make it work. If they don't work, I'll just skip them. But yeah, so always collecting paper. Then I lay them out in the house. I don't really refrigerate any of them. I lay them out, let them dry, and then you can put them in Ziploc bags after they're completely dry. So I got a lot of trays where I lay them out and clean. Some of them need cleaning, pull all the stems out, for instance. And so get on Lanshan's email list, you'll see these things come up. And they start next when it's hot outside. So these are separated forbs. Forbs, I lay the seeds the same as grass. I cover a complete flat with them, and then I take a pencil and I separate them. Those are tuberosa on the right, and on the left is, oh, I can't see that tag. I'll think of it in a minute. But anyways, you have to separate. Forbs are a three-step process. Number one, you lay the seeds down on a tray. I've got a bunch of trays in my garage under lights right now. And basically, when they get up big enough, you take a clump out and you start separating them with a pencil. And you take that pencil and just tweeze as much root as you can and just stuff them down in there. Then around the cells, I'll fill in to make sure that cell is completely filled up. And then when these get big enough, then you start see this front tray of that tuberosa. Some of those are ready to go into gallons. When they get big enough, go right into 1 gallon pots. The main thing I learned from my guru, Tom Solomon, was you cannot use potting soil once you get past this stage. This is all done in potting soil, these here. And basically, you can't use it. You'll never be able to get enough water on the plant to get them to survive. So they will not survive in potting soil. So I buy this soil called Prima Mix. We'll show you a picture of that later on. And I built a sifter. It's so sad, but most of our products come packed with a lot of wood, which locks up nitrogen, makes your plants yellow. It's not, the nitrogen is still there. It's just locked up with the microbes breaking down the wood. So I built a sifter. I saw an online video. It's basically a cement mixer, commercial garbage can. I put a wheelbarrow under it and I sift all that out. And all that wood still has some compost around it. I use that to mulch all my citrus trees and fruit trees. So it's great mulch. Nothing gets wasted, in other words. So let's see. Oh yeah, so growing indoors under fluorescent lights. Now I got some grow lights, but they're not really necessary. A regular fluorescent light will give you all the light you need for to grow plants. And this is in my garage, and that's this red on the left. You see that red heat mat. You can see a thermometer in the upper left corner. It's set for 80 degrees. And after this meeting, I'm gonna go out there and water them again. And so that mat keeps that soil about 80 degrees. And there's a thermostat in there that controls that. Now this other one, it's a light kit. It's got 4 of those trays on 3 levels so that I can put 12 flats. And you can see that right picture, those are tomatoes and peppers. I know a lot of people that do native plants also like vegetables. So those peppers or those tomatoes there are getting big enough where I separate them, take them out of the 4-inch pot, tweeze them out with the same, and then put them back into 4-inch pots. Now the potting soil I use may not be easy for a lot of people to find, but if you look around, it's called Fertilome. It's organic and it has no forest products, so it's not packed with wood. Len talked about that meeting at Brazos Bend State Park. I have the dining hall reserved for the last Sunday in March, and it's going to be me and Mary Carol Edwards from Green Star Wetlands, and we're going to work on the flyer after this. And but it's going to be at Brazos Bend, and we're going to have a flyer come out soon, and I'll post that online. So that is Salvia azure, the little green ones you can see that already popped, some popped up, Salvia azure. I collected a ton of that this year at Nash Prairie because last year, they're building that prairie at the bridge in Memorial Park, the Memorial Park Conservancy. Every time mine get up 6 inches, they come by them all. So this year I went collecting like 6 times, and those plants weren't always ready. Some were ready and some weren't all the time. Last time I went, they were all ready. And so I collected a lot of these seeds. So I'm going to have to try to stay ahead of the virus so everybody can enjoy them. That's one of my favorite plants. Beautiful blue flower. In September, October, when they were blooming, the monarchs were on them. Nectaring, they love that plant. Nectaring headed south. They're not laying eggs. They're just headed on the south to Michoacan, Mexico. So this is a video, and I'm hoping this is going to work. I did this a year ago for a different group, but I liked it because it shows a thing here. And Is that working?
No sound.
No sound?
Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
stop sharing for a second and then click the share screen button again. And when the window pops up, there's little check boxes in the bottom. One of them says optimize for video clip and one says share sound. Just
Oh,
click
thank
those
you.
two. You're
I'm
welcome.
glad I had a technology person on board because I'm not. I'm a plant grower.
You're very welcome.
Okay, then share.
50 cell tray.
How is that?
You know, this bag I marked Flohanna Prairie, November 12th, 2020, little blue step. So what we're going to do is we're going to lay this on really thick. I'm going to cover all these cells with seed. And you put a ton of seed down. And we're going to water it in. Feed on this end. Okay, then I got this hose set on a mister. We're gonna mist this. The soil we had already moistened previously. Oops, see, it's gonna blow it off. You're gonna have a really, really fine spray. Keep it from blowing away. Normally I do this in the barn, but it's hard to see in there. So you get this really wet, so all the seeds are making good contact with the soil. And like I say, we pre-moistened this already, and so that's gonna take off. And each one of these are gonna make one grass plant. So there's gonna be 50 little blue stems here, and I'm gonna show you a tray that we already have done.
That's out of the screen.
Okay, this is a tray that was come out of the greenhouse. This is a purple top Tridens flavus. 11/9/2020 is when I laid the seeds down. I don't keep really good records, but I do date these. And see, when I pull this plug out, that's going to be one plant. So this tray has 50 of those in it. Now forbs are a little different. We'll show you that next. Hello everyone, what we got here is a 50 cell tray. Hello everyone, this is how we're going to separate forbs. We showed you previously the grass plant, which is two-step process. Forbs is three-step. So what I got here, this is fertile loam potting soil in this 50 cell tray. This is blue mist flower that came out of the greenhouse, and I'm going to separate them with a pencil and put them in here. So first of all, you lay the seeds down just like the grass. They come up in these clumps. Then I'm going to pull a clump out like that, and you can see them roots. So we're going to take one of these forbs and we're just going to tease this roots away. Get as much roots as you can, and that's going to go into the cell, and you tuck them in like that. And then I'm going to fill in around these maybe later. Here's a big one, so let me try to do this. I hate that tearing sound because I know I'm losing some roots, but they'll survive. There's tons of roots in here. And there's that seedling. So you don't have to be any special way of tucking the roots. You're just going to get them all inside that cell, and that's the important thing. So we're going to separate these today, and we're going to have 50 of these. After they get bigger and start to grow, this whole cell will be nothing but roots. Then you can easily pluck them out with the pencil again, and then put them in gallons. So it's three-step. Seedlings here, separation in the 50 cell, and then when these get you can see the growth habit. When they get pretty big or bigger than this, you can tell real easy. Then they go into gallons. It's a three-step process. Hello, everyone. This
Okay. Do those both work okay for everybody?
Yes. Good.
Okay, great. Now this is Gulf Muley. I did these this week. This is real recent. That's the tray on the right. I wish I'd made that a little bigger because the cells, these are sitting in a little potting, clay pot tray there. And so I'm plucking them out, but the cell is completely clean when I pull these out because that whole cell, inch and a half by inch and a half is solid roots. So I pull it out and the tray barely needs rinsing out when I'm done. So I did these 50 this week. I actually did 49. There was a couple that were real small in this tray, so I put 2 of them together. And so I got 50. I got another 50 in the greenhouse to do. So I'm working hard on, I only had like 3 of these at Wildscape last year, and I want to have them. So this year I cut a 5-gallon bucket at a time out at Nash Prairie. And Tom Solomon taught me this trick. I don't try to get the seeds off of them because they cling. So basically I shred that whole muley inflorescence with scissors. Tom told me he used to sit in front of the TV and just shred. And then you put that whole shredded mixture down on top. And this is what happens in a short amount of time. It was hot earlier in the year. That greenhouse gets really hot. I don't have any shade cloth I put in there like in April, May, when it starts getting over 85. And so right now there's no shade cloth. So when the sun shines, that greenhouse is really, really warm. So these grow really, really fast. So that's the Gulf Muley, just showing you what we were doing in the video. And here's our planting method. This is how you put a plant into the ground. I learned this from Tom and the people down at Armand Bayou. Now, they keep records. About 4 years ago, they passed over 300,000 1-gallon plants in the ground. And they've converted 400 acres that was nothing but tallow trees in the 70s into a tall grass prairie. And they're still doing that. There's people there that plant 12 months a year. So basically, when them pots are root bound, you got to roll them on its side. And to get them out of there, you pour a 1/2 gallon of water in a hole, place it slightly above ground level. You put all the soil back, even though you're displacing some. You add another 1/2 gallon of water. You step around in a circle and force the air out of the hole. I'm doing this I started in my front yard. I had like 2 acres of St. Augustine out there. And basically in 2002, I built this little circle curved little bed out by the street, and I put a lot of forbs in there so it'd stick out to the neighbors. And when the swamp sunflower bloomed in the fall, they came over and wanted to collect seeds on their golf carts. I said, yeah, go ahead. And so every year I've added on to it, and now I've got an acre of tall grass prairie in the front yard and on the other side of the driveway. And it's a deed restricted subdivision, but it crept up on them so slow they didn't notice. And I also burn, Brazos Bend has a prescribed burn, waiting for the right conditions. And usually the day they burn, I burn the same day, so people don't notice the smoke in my neighborhood. But actually, the sheriff drove by last year, and I waved at him he was going into the neighborhood, and when he came back out, so no problem there. So this
Mark?
Yes.
There's a long, skinny black box kind of toward the bottom of the slide. It looks like you have a window over top of your slide. Can you move that or close it?
I'm not seeing it here.
Huh.
It's on this slide too?
Yeah, it looks like there's like a tiny window, another computer window over top. It's horizontal, long, skinny, black. Well, to us, it looks black. Oh yeah, whatever. It's that thing. Whatever you just moved.
That's my bar about screen, the Zoom thing.
Oh.
Let me put it all the way down.
I think if you go to the side of it, it says hide. There's a way to hide it. Let me look on my screen here.
Okay.
Hide names. Hide floating. There it is. Hide floating. There you go.
Okay. Is that good now?
No.
I got rid of the whole bar. How about now?
That works.
Now it's done. Thank
It's
you.
done? Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about soil. Living Earth Technologies. Basically, this was a mom and pop dirt yard. Living Earth has bought them all out. I'm not really fond of their products because of all the wood, but this Prima mix was made by the previous people that are still working there, and they still make it. It's awesome. It's basically a vegetable mix, and that's a 10-yard pile right there. Now, you can see I got some big campaign signs that I grab off the street after every election, and it's underneath that, so I could sweep up the remains. But I moved this whole pile into the barn because I used to keep it outside, and it get all kinds of Bermuda grass and weeds. It just ruined the whole batch. So I keep it in the barn, don't get any weeds that way. I sift it out with my sifter. And so this is a great product. You can go down there and they'll scoop you out a small amount. But if you want bag products, Nature's Way Resources in Conroe, they have bags you can buy. Now, when we started our work in Seabourn Creek, our Master Naturalist Coastal Prairie chapter started in Seabourn Creek. Before I was even a member years ago, the first thing they did was built this butterfly garden in the middle of just a couple hundred acres of nothingness. And so they built this butterfly garden and they went to Nature's Way. It cost a fortune to truck that down as big as they made them beds really big. So they trucked it in and put it in there. And the first time I saw that, you saw this butterfly garden in the middle of a great blank expanse, and there was tons of butterflies on it. They find it, and it was just amazing. And so that Nature's Way bag soil products in Conroe, these are two that I've used. And John Ferguson, who owned Nature's Way, had a landscape company, and when he went around trying to find soil and mulch to do his landscape business, he couldn't find any quality products at all. So he said, oh, well, I'm going to have to make my own. And that's what he did. And if you ever go out there, he's got these huge machines. You'll see this yard waste and leaves and everything going up one conveyor belt. The other conveyor belt is a load of manure, I guess from cattle. And it's basically mixing them. These two belts take it up in the air, and then the piles mix, and the piles heat up. They can actually catch fire. It gets so hot. So they have to watch on that. But you can see them smoking when it's done. And this pile here was warm to the touch when I got it, which is not good for plants. But once it cools off and stops heating up, it works great. Okay, we're going to look at some plants. And I got a few of my favorites in here. A Gaillardia pucella, Indian blanket, blooms May to August. There's some blooming here now. It throws seeds like crazy, so reseeds readily. So that's one of my favorites. And coral honeysuckle. These coral honeysuckle make seeds, the little purple, and I put them in a pot and just set them out in the cold, and they're coming up. I do this every year, but I also do cuttings when this bush gets bigger again. I killed two of these on my property before I put one on the east side of an oak tree, and I put this little garden art under there, and it climbed up and made this huge mass up in the oak tree of coral honeysuckle, and the hummingbirds are all over it. And some people eat these leaves. I guess they're edible in salads, but basically I'll do cuttings, which gets you a lot of plants. And I always buy some bamboo So you can train them up the bamboo. Once it goes up a couple feet and drops back down, then they're ready for people to put them in their yard. But I love this plant. It's great. The scarlet sage, Salvia coccinea. I didn't think much of this plant until my wife put one in a pot on the back porch, and I could not believe all the insects visiting it when I was sitting on the back porch. You know, I saw hummingbirds, bees. There's little tiny bees that I can't identify. Lauren Jansen Simpson told me 3 species of these miniature bees that it probably is, but they're so tiny I can't photograph them, and you see them zipping in and out of the flowers. So that's a great, and it also comes in white and pink. Now, so those 3 colors are native. If it's blue, it's probably a hill country plant. So this is easy to grow. When the seed heads dry, like on that red seed head dry, you snip them off, the plant will make another branch and even make more seeds that way. Easily grows in a container. Like I say, my wife had one on the back porch. And Turk's cap. I love this one. It's hummingbirds galore. They stay short unless there's a bush or something around like a shrub. By my back window here, my kitchen window right behind me, there's a Turk's cap that climbed up in the shrubs I got over there. And so we'll sit here in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and you can watch the hummingbirds out the window. Which is always a treat. In Journey North, I just logged in on Monarch on my property, a big male, and I put it on there. Journey North is a website, and you can log first time you see a monarch, first time you see a hummingbird, or they got a bunch of different things on there you can enter in. So I entered a friend, Carol Lenardi Clark from North Texas. She told me, please put that on Journey North. So I went on there and did that the other day. So mountain mint. So this is a great plant, white flowers. When them seed heads turn black, that white, when that turns black, that's the actual seed. And you kind of cut them with scissors, because if you try to pull one, the whole plant will come out of the ground. But the way I found this, I had this white flower, and me and Susan Kennedy tried to identify it on the side of my driveway. And it had been there since I bought the place. And about 15 years ago, Jane Ryerson, one of our Native Plant Society members, came by, and she got out of the car and she goes, wow, nice mountain mint. I said, what? She said, yeah, it's mountain mint. I go, what species? She said, I don't know. So I got on the computer and researched it. There's 20 species. They think it's, there's one in the Carolinas, I think it's probably extinct. And a guy hiking in the mountains of Pennsylvania in the late 1600s, looked for useful plants, found one, not this species, but he named the genus mountain mint. But the species, like I say, there's 19. This one occurs all over Fort Bend County. You see these white clusters when it's blooming. You can drive through the roads in Brazos Bend State Park, and you'll see these white clusters sticking up everywhere. And the settlers moved in this area in the 1830s mainly, and they would rub the leaves on their skin to ward off mosquitoes. So they used it for mosquito repellent. You could also make tea out of it. In the clay, it's not really aggressive like mints can be, but one of my customers planted one in a raised bed vegetable mix garden. It went crazy, went berserk, grew through the fence. She said the neighbor comes out when the neighbor wants to make tea, comes out there with a bowl and scissors, and starts cutting it, take it inside. So this is a great one that we'll have more at Wildscape. Aquatic milkweed. I found these on my property years ago, and Barbara Willie and somebody else was here, and they said, you really need to, or Susan Kennedy and Barbara, they said, you really need to watch that pod. We saw one out in the pasture, and when it starts to crack or turn brown, to collect it. Well, I looked at it like every other day, and then when I did, it did open up, it dropped all the seed and I could only find 2. Now this most people know milkweed to have silk. Prentice has no silk, so it's not ever airborne. What it does is each seed is like a little boat, and when you get a heavy rain, they float to new locations. So in the spring, when these are starting to bloom, I'll walk around my property and mark them with a wooden stake, and so I can bag the pods. And that's how I keep up with all my seeds on this one. Asclepias viridis, green milkweed. These are found all over this area. We call them green. Antelope horn is a different species. I think it's a common name, but some people call these antelope horns, but most people around Houston, Galveston call them green milkweed. The monarchs will only use these when they're young in the spring. And usually I find my first milkweeds coming up on these wherever I've mowed like 3 or 4 acres already. And what happens is the monarchs will use them when they're young. When they're old in the fall, they won't touch it. But that's how I find the first ones last year. I saw 2 monarchs flying low across my pasture. And then when I saw them dip down, I went there and I found the plant with the egg on it. So that's how I actually found the first. They were so small that, I wouldn't have noticed them, but the monarchs led me right to them. Texas coneflower. This is I like to say our coneflower because it's only a couple counties west of here, south of I-10, and then into Louisiana a ways. But when one year, not every year this happens, one year when they had just hayed Nash Prairie at the right time of year, and then we had a lot of rain, that was just, it looked like all the way to the horizon, all you seen was yellow. It was gorgeous. Rosinweed sunflower, the slender rosinweed. This guy blooms. I got them blooming right now. They'll bloom when they're only a 6 inches tall plant. I have 1 flower on it. Lady sent me a picture, said, look how short this is. It's already got a flower. And what's strange, whenever they burn a prairie, the first thing that comes up, one of them is this. It'll come right up, have 1 flower on it, and then eventually they can go 4 foot tall. Speaking about when I didn't know much about it, I saw these on there's a 2-acre hay meadow that's still there in Alvin. When I used to go to work in Alvin, there was a little 2-acre prairie next to the volunteer fire department. And I went over there and I saw them. The ditch was really deep there, so he wouldn't cut hay. He left like a 6-foot margin because he didn't want to dump his tractor down in there. But I actually grabbed one of these flower heads, and that seed fell into my hand. It actually grows on right behind the flowers. And I laid that down and grew them before I even knew what it was. And I went to a meeting, and the plant of the month was rosinweed. And so I found out, how we lay the seeds on top. These like to be covered a little. And Wally Ward gave me a great tip last year. He said, dry, put them in the fridge dry. I got a container in my fridge right now that's dated dry, and just refrigerate them. And I did that for like 6 weeks, and that whole cell germinated. So that's a great tip about growing these. Easy to grow. Great plant. Wine cups. I grow the perennials, and it has a corm that looks like it looks like a carrot. It's almost carrot colored too. And that corm will sit there dormant in the winter, and it's waiting for the timing of the daylight and the rain, and then I'll shoot out runners in all directions and just make this beautiful flower. There's an erect one in the hill country, a different species, and I'm going to try those because people love that erect ones, and some friends of mine grow that, and so I'm going to try them this year for the first time. But these are perennials, the erect ones and annual. But they'll probably drop enough seed that, yeah, they'll work. So that's the wine cup. Blazing Star, Pycnostakia, beautiful butterfly on that. I have a picture of a butterfly. When these dry out, that all turns brown. And I got a picture where a Gulf fruiter Larry was sleeping on one of the brown ones. So they still recognize the native plants, even in different seasons of the year. And they're a little tricky. Tom taught me that, you know, when you separate these seedlings, you have to have a little corm form at the top. And when I took his class, that's like 20 years ago, it was in Bel Air at that nature center. And I took that class and I told him I just separated an 18 tray of 4-inch pots. And he said they're probably all going to die. And 17 of them croaked. But so I learned that lesson. You leave them in a pot a long time, a couple months, 3 months, and then start separating. So that's another one of my favorites. And Rattlesnake Master attracts more insects than any plant in the U.S. A guy in Louisiana set up a camera on one for several days, and he counted the species, and it was like over 250 different species of insects visiting this plant. And the leaves are, or the seed heads are really sharp. And to clean them, I take leather gloves. When they dry out and turn brown, I cut them off with scissors or pruners, and then rub the leaves between your hands and with some gloves, and that's how you clean them out. Amsonia Eastern Blue Star, Tabernet Montana. It's really, if you go to Bonap, it's really Amsonia repens. It was written up one time by a botanist who called it Amsonia Tabernet Montana variety repens, but he never wrote the papers to make that official. A friend of mine told me they're probably going to go back to Tabernet Montana, but if you look at the map, and this was the plant of the month like 3 years ago at Native Plant Society, and I knew that, but I said I ain't going to raise my hand and say, you know, whatever. But if you look at the Bonap map, it'll show only 2 counties up by Arkansas that have Tabernet Montana. So that's just a little, but a friend of mine said they're probably going to go back to this. You know, these names change over the years. I have a colony of this on my property. And when I mowed the back pasture, I could sit on my back porch and see butterflies from like 100 yards away. And the bloom doesn't last that long, but they're a really neat plant because they make these beans on them that look like French filleted green beans, real skinny green beans, and they'll hang there. When they turn, you know, I got a big wooden stake out by this colony right now. They're dormant, but anyways, those beans will hang there. When they turn brown, I pick the beans, and when you break them open, there's this. I put these under a microscope one time. It's like a red maroonish cylinder that looks like wood, and it's got grooves in it from one end to the other. So we lay these on the top of the tray, and you know, without burying them. And what you'll see is a little white root will come out of one end of that little cylinder, and then the little plant will pop up. So this is really unusual and like a native plant, but actually really beautiful. It's like wet. I've seen them in the ditches in Brazoria County, and we dug some ahead of the mowers before. So that's a great plant to have. One of my favorites, Gulf Coast penstemon. The only place I ever saw it on the wild when I bought this property, and I was walking a fence line once, and I don't see them over there, but under this oak, there was penstemons, and they were real short. They only got 6 inches tall. They're in the heaviest clay gumbo you can imagine, and but just beautiful. But you put them in a flower bed or something, they get bigger, 2 foot. They can go 3 foot. Once the seed head dries, you can cut them down. They'll bloom twice. You can do that with coneflowers too. So sweet scent. I got this at the seed swap. I hope we have a better seed swap. I'm hoping this pandemic stuff will be over possibly in 90 days, what I'm thinking. Slow down anyways. But I got these at a seed swap. Somebody gave them to me, said you should try this, and I tried it. Absolutely gorgeous. Super fragrant. Some people think it stinks, but I always tell the customer, pick a leaf of that when I'm selling these, crush it. It smells really good. Now, I've seen these in a while. This is the range this thing has. I've never seen huge batches of it, but I seen it at Matagorda Bay Nature Park. That's right on the beach, but this was on not the beach side of the dunes, but on the road side of the dunes. I saw it growing there. I was at a Master Naturalist conference in Georgetown like 4 years ago, and we went to a pond in a park in the city. I think we were birding, but we were walking, and I saw this on the shore, little plants growing in the water, and I picked a leaf and crushed it to make sure, and I said, there it is. And then some people sent me pictures of it in some wetland parks in Sugar Land and said, is that it? I said, yep, that's it. So gorgeous, gorgeous plant. And Gulf Muley, you know, the ones you see, the giant ones, they plant them on roadside. They're so tough, they'll plant them on roadsides, banks, commercial buildings. You'll see these a lot. And even Herman Park. But those giant ones that are 3 to even 5 feet tall, that seed originally came from Florida. It's the same species, Muhlenbergia capillaris, but the Florida species are just huge. So I grow the Nash Prairie ones that are more compact, 18, 24 inches. So gorgeous plant. This is collecting milkweed. You can see that wood stake by some parentis in the woods. The right side, so I pound that in the ground. I see 3, 4 seed pods on the plant on the left plant. The left picture, the plant on the right, I can see 4 seed pods there. They get really big. You get 50 or 60 seeds in each one of those. Those 2 that are touching that picture, I'll put 1 bag around that. You know, if they're close enough, you put 2 bags. Sometimes they'll actually just fall off the plant and I'll go out there and pick them up. The right side was Brazos Bend when it was really wet. A year, one time they couldn't mow a lot, and this was in a mowed, normally a mowed area around one of the lakes. And you see that beautiful butterfly. You can see some milkweed beetles in the upper right corner. They always come with that, and it's like a little ecosystem. And then you'll see the aphids. And yeah, so this picture, I went back to look at this plant, and they had, after it dried out, they mowed, so it's not there. But if you ever go to Brazos Bend and you walk to the observatory trail, there's a wetland there, and the parentis there are all over on the side of that bridge. So here's just a few butterfly pictures that I took. That bottom right, see, there's the one sleeping on the upper right. There's a Gulf fritillary sleeping on a dried liatris. So they still know the native plants. Of course, that's a monarch caterpillar in the upper left. That's a Pennsylvania smartweed. It's an annual, it grows here. I've seen it in Brazos Bend. If you take the trail down along the Brazos River, I've seen that smartweed. Interesting story. Land probably remembers, Land Shen remembers this. Smartweed is a favorite food of ducks. So a duck basically pooped this out in my wife's vegetable bed, rich soil, and it came up and turned into this huge bush. Remember, Land was taking pictures because there's every kind of butterfly, insects, and skippers and everything were visiting it. She took pictures, but yeah, it just was a volunteer that showed up. And that zebra, long wing zebra, I've only seen that butterfly 3 times. This was in my yard on some non-native lantana that a bird probably dropped. I seen it at Carl Baumgartner's property on the Brazos River, and I seen it at a state park one time. So I've only seen this guy 3 times. Absolutely beautiful. but there's my business card. A lot of my information I'm putting on Facebook, and I had to use my full name, like on this card, Mark Edward Morgenstern. So certain events that are coming up, or even this event, I posted on there. So that one Facebook page, Mark Edward Morgenstern, will have a lot of information. I'll take a picture of a plant or a butterfly and post and talk about it. So I like doing that. So I guess now I'll be ready for some question and answers. So what do you think, Andrew?
Yeah, there are quite a few in the chat.
Okay.
I
Linda,
compiled them into one chat that I just sent.
okay, I gotta shrink this down somehow. I gotta get my box back.
I think you might have to hit the escape key.
Okay. There we go. Okay, what's first? Okay, who's gonna read me the questions? Linda?
I will. Do
Okay,
you
great.
do you refrigerate native milkweed seeds?
Only Viridis, and it's a hard one to grow. It takes a year and a half to get a plant good enough. Basically, you take horticultural vermiculite, you can find that at garden centers. I use distilled water and then put 100, 150 seeds. My last batch didn't do very good, but you roll it up in that vermiculite. You tilt the bag to make sure it's not overwatered. But basically, you put a date on that bag, put it in there for 6 weeks. And I'm going to do that soon. I actually got the bag of vermiculite filled. I just got to put the seeds in there. So I refrigerate that one. And then you put it outside on a tray, and I'll have a spray bottle, and I'll mist that tray every day, keep it moist. And then they'll get like a 2-inch root, then I'll put them each individual into cells. And then what happens is when they get big, you can put them in gallons, and what's going to happen, they're going to fade in the winter. And hopefully in the spring they'll return. And some of them do, some of them don't. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it can be done. I mean, I've been somewhat successful, but perennis doesn't need any tuberosa, no germination. Slim verticulata, no germination. I mean, no refrigeration. Sometimes I find those on my property too. And anyways, those are the ones that need refrigeration. Okay, what's the next question?
Does the sifting remove the nut grass? I guess is when you were talking about cutting up the grasses.
Well, the sifter I use just to get the wood out of my Prima mix. So I don't know anything that removes nut grass. It's really tough. You never get rid of it. You can just try to keep it at a minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's here with us, and we're not gonna ever get rid of it 100%.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes you visit these pristine prairies, and the road edge or the beginning where you walk in, you might see some of that, but then when you're out in there, you won't see it.
I think animals get them.
Yeah.
Well, Reba asked, where do we find you online and social media? Well, there's his website, morningstarprairieplants.com.
Yeah, and Mark Edward Morgenstern, Facebook, and Morningstar Prairie Plants Facebook. I may get rid of that. Facebook made it hard to go. you got to log out of one profile and log into the other, and I'm getting tired of that. So I might just merge them.
You should, well, I'll talk about that later. How often do you burn?
Once a year. And
Okay.
I'm going to burn this year. Last year, my forbs didn't come back very good in that front garden. I burned like 3 years in a row, so I decided just to mow it. But yeah, once a year. And you know, what's really neat, sometimes we'll have these rains and then the conditions will turn just right after a front goes by. And like one time I burned, there was standing water in the grass because it won't absorb it. The prairie absorbs it. So there's standing water in the grass all around the prairie. So I knew it wouldn't ever escape. But I parked my tractor out in the driveway by the street and, you know, make sure people know. I had one neighbor call. I said, yeah, that's me. Yeah, so they're pretty tolerant of that.
Hmm.
Yep.
Do you propagate many shrubs from cuttings?
I'm going to try more this year. You know, I know that the shrubs I do are coralberry, and the other cuttings I do is the coral honeysuckle, coralberry. I'm going to try some other ones too.
Okay. Doesn't green milkweed need cold stratification?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's, like I say, horticulture of vermiculite, distilled water, and seeds. 6 weeks in the fridge.
6 weeks. Okay, that was the next question. How long?
Yeah.
When do you put it in the soil?
Yeah. And then we put them on a tray. I have some kind of tray to mist the water onto that.
Okay, Regina asks if your nursery sells retail or exclusively wholesale. So tell her about your Saturdays at the farmer's market.
Yeah, right now I'm starting back on 2 markets. I got Saturday, every Saturday at Urban Harvest. Last week I didn't go. They had a high wind warning. They told people no tents. And one time that happened before last year. And when I heard the people that went told me no tents and no customers either. So I skipped last week. So I'm usually there almost every Saturday. I'm going to be there. It's going to start off 29 degrees, but warm up into the 50s. So we're dressed warm. And I do citrus in the fall too. And so I take pre-orders, even on plants. Pre-orders you can get off my website, morningstarprairieplants.com. And I'll hold anything. People ask, do I have to put a deposit? No. But I have to receive a Gmail, otherwise I'm not going to bring it. You know, so if I get the Gmail saying, yeah, I want this, I want that, I'll bring them. And
Okay.
all my plants are $10 each. They're all 1 gallon, ready to go into the ground. I usually sell the milkweed for 12, but right now they're small, so I've been selling a few here and there for 10. But they got to keep them in the pot. So Sunday, I'm starting back at Pecan Grove. It's on 359, just a little bit west of 90. And that's an artisan market. So Urban Harvest is real strict. Every booth there is making the product that they're selling, except they're letting me do citrus this year because they canceled their citrus tree sale because of COVID and a shortage of there's a big shortage of trees right now. I'm limited to buying 5 of certain ones at a time. I can only buy 5. So they're not going to do it. And so they've been letting me bring trees. Normally they frown upon that because I didn't grow them myself. But they're all grown by Brazil Citrus. They grow 70,000 trees a year. He can't keep up after the big freeze. He's thinking about building another 4-acre greenhouse. With citrus greening disease, there's the requirements. You have to have a double airlock door. They stand on the sticky strip when they're walking in. They have to bleach their tools between each species. But but anyways, they can't keep up with demand, especially after the big freeze. And George and Lee are great people to work with.
So
So-
is the plant list on your website current now with the fruit
Yeah.
trees?
Yeah, I got the fruit trees and the native plants are listed both on that website. And the neat thing about the biggest pollinators I got right now are my blueberries and my Meyer lemons. Blueberries will take, that's actually a native plant in East Texas, all the way up to New Jersey. But blueberries, these are all cultivars, obviously, because they all got different names. And they'll take, the rabbit eye takes 0 degrees. I got some of those here now. 0 degrees outside without covering them. I never cover my blueberries. The high bush, which is kind of a misnomer, the high bush are shorter than a rabbit eye blueberry. But the high bush will take 20 degrees below 0, and somebody in Canada reported theirs survived 30 degrees below. So I don't cover them. They don't need any covering. But yeah, and what's neat about these blueberries, I grow them in pots, 100% peat moss. And I learned this from Dr. Bob. So 100% peat moss, no soil in the pots at all, none. Nope. And then I mulch the top. They like rotting wood for some reason. Bob told me last year, Dr. Bob Randall's the guy that started Urban Harvest. He told me last year they like something in rotting wood they like. So that's always good. But last night, when I saw skippers and sulfurs and every kind of butterfly and bee you can imagine was on that. Then I went out at night and the blooming blueberry bushes were covered with moths, just flitting everywhere. So it's like 24 hours of pollination. So that's really, really neat to see.
Okay. Do you have a specific time you collect seeds, or is it depend on the plant?
We start in May, like at Nash and different prairies are here around May. I collected all the way up to, into the winter. I mean, I still got like some seeds hanging on, some ironweed and some yellow Indian grass are still out there. But the more it rains, the more it knocks it down. But we were in a drought. I only got 3/4 of an inch of rain in that storm, and I needed more because this cold and dry air is going to dry that right up like it didn't even happen. So, next question.
Yeah. I see. Thank yous. Awesome presentation. That's all the questions. Looks
Okay,
like.
great.
Yeah. So, anyone else, anything else they want to tell us about? Oh, there's a new message. Another thank you. Okay, well then, I guess we'll adjourn. I just want to remind you, everyone's welcome to join us at our board meetings, which will be next week with our brand new board. And soon we'll start planning wildscapes. So you might want to join us for that. And we'll be making plans for new activities at our next board meeting. So join us. The link is always in the newsletter and on the website.
I take it that's going to be all Zoom for the time being.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well then, I guess good night, everyone.
All right.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Andrew. Andrew's dog.
Yeah, he says good night.